They have to go do the work. We coach, you run the race.
So you mean there's actually work involved in this, huh? Everyone thinks it's a 4-hour work week, and it's just like, okay.
Hello, everybody. This is Jake Stenziano, host of the Wheelbarrow Properties Podcast, here with my co-host, the multifamily mentor, the coach, the chef, the father of 6, the best-selling author, the G-Daddy, Gino Barbaro. Gino, how's it going?
Mr. Stenziano, I'm doing okay, considering that we got a hurricane coming our way, and they don't know where it's going. And just prayers go out to the people who are in the Bahamas, because they've suffered a long, couple of days there. So my thoughts and prayers go out to them and everybody on the East Coast. I just hope everybody gets safe to shelters. And last time I evacuated, went to Jake's house. I probably should have done that again, but I have my mother-in-law here. So I don't think Jake wants to see 9 people at his house and just
bring it on, man. More the merrier.
So I'm doing good. How are you?
Are you evacuating, or are you holding down?
No, we're holding down. I think the storm's pushing out. They don't know, but you know what? I got everyone in my neighborhood staying here, so it sounds like I'm staying here too.
All right, enough about Gino's storm. We're about to bring the entrepreneur storm. Today's guest is Andy Bailey. Andy is a serial entrepreneur who spends the majority of his time coaching other entrepreneurs on how to grow dynamic businesses that focus on people, strategy, execution, and cash. He is founder and head coach at Petra Coach, an entrepreneurial coaching firm. He shows organizations the log jams thwarting their success and coaches them past urgent day-to-day fire drills so they can address and execute important higher level business strategies. So without further ado, Andy, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me today, guys. And I've got a place down on the Panhandle. I don't know exactly where you are, but we went through Michael last October. So I've got a little bit of insight into hurricanes and kind of what's going on. So good luck with that. And I know how devastating that can be for sure.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
All right. So, Andy, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started in business.
Sure. So let's see, back in early 90s, and you may remember this, did you guys have a pager at any point growing up?
I never did.
Those were the cool kids.
Yeah, I wasn't a cool one. So,
so that's where I got started. Well, that's true. Yeah, we had several of those. Those were our best clients back in the day. Yeah. So as a senior in college, I was a sales rep for a cell phone carrier, 1099, straight salesperson, commission only, and did really, really, really well. While I was going to school, 6-figure income as a junior in college, which was kind of crazy, and spent every dollar I ever made back then. Learned a lot of lessons, as you can imagine. But what I realized pretty quickly was I did not have recurring revenue. So I would never take a day off. I would never take a weekend, because I equated every hour to a number. And I knew if I wasn't working, I wasn't making that money. And, quickly became a big issue for me in my, early 20s. So I started doing some messing around with pagers, because I knew that I could purchase the airtime from the carriers and resell it for a pretty good difference, and sell it one time and make that recur. So I stopped doing the cell phone thing and moved over to doing pagers, which seems a little antiquated, but built that business pretty quickly to about 30,000 pager customers all across North America. We had distribution points from the middle of Kentucky all the way down to the Gulf Coast, and pretty good sized business. And we transitioned pretty quickly from pagers to two-way radios to Nextel back in the day, to more cell phones. We became the BlackBerry guys. We started doing BlackBerries when they first started coming into the States from Waterloo, Canada, and made the transition, helped people make the transition from making a cell phone call to actually typing on a keyboard. Literally, we had to have classes, and we had a road show that went around the Southeast, popping up training classes on how to type on a phone, which seems ridiculous today, but it was a pretty good transition for everyone. What I learned through all that was, being able to build a business beyond just a job was something that most entrepreneurs just don't know how to do. What I mean by that is, if it centers around that particular person, if that person is so integral to an organization and they don't build an actual company, then really it's a glorified job. 2004, I met a guy named Vern Harnish. I went to one of his workshops. He has a book. At the time, he had a book called Rockefeller Habits. and he since has written one called Scaling Up, Rockefeller Habits 2.0. And I learned about an operating system for my company and began to implement that. And that helped me understand better how to have an actual business that I didn't have to be involved in all the parts and pieces. And that allowed me to scale over the last, I had that company for 18 years, 10 years. I say I ran it very poorly, kind of brute force, just pushing things along and working long hours. And, you know, the last 8 years or so was just like exponential growth. So I kind of got out of my own way and I learned how to build a company. And I built it on the basis of this Rockefeller Habits scaling up methodology that Vern brought to the marketplace back then. Sold that business in 2011. Took about a year. Spent a lot of time at the Gulf Coast, actually, down in the Panhandle of Florida, and paddleboarded a ton. And you know, I was 42 years old, and he was like, "Hey, man, I'm too young. I don't like this not doing something." And I was working to figure out what I wanted to go do next. And I had a bunch of my friends who were entrepreneurs running companies who were asking me, like, "Dude, you did so well in your company, and it seems so easy, and you're having so much fun, and the culture was awesome. Can you come help me do some of that?" And I didn't really know what I was doing. I just knew what I had done through, you know, reading books and working with Vern and his organization over time. So I went and helped a few of my friends kind of do that, creating daily huddle and meeting rhythms and, you know, really strong, well-written priorities and key performance indicators and dashboards and things like that. Spent about a year doing that, messing around on the side and kind of helping some people paddleboarding, you know, for a week. And then I'd go work with somebody for a week. And I really got a lot of energy from helping those other people kind of see what I saw. That was a light bulb moment for me, and decided that 2012, I decided, hey, I'm going to start an organization that does this. Again, that whole, how do I build something that's bigger than myself, that I don't have to have a job, but I can actually have a company, something that has recurring revenue, that if I don't show up, there's still revenue coming in the door. And so we started a practice. Today, that practice is Petra Coach. We operate in North America, based out of Nashville, Tennessee, where the main office is. We have a location in Denver, Colorado, a location in the UK, in London, and we service about 125 companies in the US, Canada, and all over Western Europe. So that's 3 minutes of 25 years.
So, Andy, I gotta go back to college. Why did you finish college when you're making six figures? What propelled you to finish college?
Well, I did not finish. That's a great point, actually. And I didn't say that I did. So
I just assumed. I assumed that because Jake's the Radio Shack guy. So I know my next question was the Radio Shack, because it seems like successful people work in sales when they start out. So for me, you went to college. You did not finish college. So what did you do? You just went right into the business right after that?
Yeah, man, I was running my, I told you guys before we started, we moved into a new office over the weekend. And in that move, I found a bunch of pictures from the old office move, like the 3 moves before of the old company. And I found a picture of me in my house at the time when I was a senior in college, in the attic. So I built out my attic in my house, and I was actually operating my company out of that attic, that paging business I was telling you about. And it just came down to, man, you know, I'm working a ton. I see something in this business where it can actually be something long-term, something I can continue to grow. I had a lot of energy around it. I loved doing it. I like building things. I was bored with school. I never was good at school. I'm not good with authority in general. There's lots of stories behind that too. So I just made a choice. I was like, I'm just going to go do this. Maybe one day I'll go back, and I've looked at it a few times, actually met with deans of schools and stuff like that. But it's just not that important to me.
Wow. So I'm talking to Jake part 2 over here, because Jake is not good with the corporate authority. Jake loves the sales guy, and Jake loves to build. So that is awesome, dude. How did you build a business? I mean, like when you say you built a business and you scaled it in your early 20s, what did that look like? I mean, people can't I can't wrap my mind around a young guy not finishing college being able to scale up and build a business like that. What were the steps that you took back then to really build that business out?
Yeah, so I read something a long time ago that said every successful organization is built one productive person at a time. And the productive person piece of that, I think, is what kind of stuck with me. And I knew and to your point earlier, man, I mean, I've always been a good salesperson. So I always knew whatever it was, I'll go figure it out. I'll go sell some more, whatever the thing may be. But I had to build that back office. So personally, I'm a really good salesperson, results-driven person. If you're familiar with DISC, I'm a DC, which is kind of an odd thing. I like the details. I also like the results. And I'm operationally really, really, really strong. I'm also, kind of visionary, really, really, really strong, which is a unique combination. It gets in my way a lot as well, but it helps me to be able to set goals out there into the future and break them down into a systematic format to achieve them. So like literally when I started the coaching practice, I set a 10-year vision. I sat at my desk and I wrote a 10-year vision for what it looked like 10 years out. And I broke it down into 5, 3, 1, and then started working on it every quarter and then every single day. Now I didn't have that, that ability back in my 20s. Back in my 20s, I told you earlier, the first 10 years of running that organization was just pure brute force. I had something, it generated revenue. I could find good people and bring them along with me to get them to help me build my vision. I've always been pretty high on appreciation and love of other individuals who kind of come into the, into the fold, so to speak. And I found a lot of really highly productive people to help me do it.
So what was that pain point that you had after 10 years of saying to yourself, I've got to do something different? Like I've been driving crazy and I got to change. What was it for you?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's one that we look for today when we talk to people who call us about coaching their organizations. We call it fear or frustration. Either you got to have, a level of frustration where literally, and this was my story, I'd pull into the parking lot at the office and I didn't want to go in there. I didn't want to see those people. I didn't want to talk to customers. I didn't want to do it anymore. I was just tired. I was worn out. And I knew that something had to change. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what needed to change. And ultimately what needed to change was me. It wasn't necessarily the business or my team. It was me. I was the one that needed to change. That frustration level was really, really high for me. The fear piece of it, and I had a little bit of this as well, when we talk to companies about coaching, we'll say, there has to be a healthy level of fear. And it's fear meaning I can see where we could go, and I am fearful that the way we're doing things today, we're not going to get there. So frustration and fear have to exist, and I have both of those combined.
Well, I'm writing this down because I'm trying to map out Jake and myself's journey. When we called Petra and we said, we need help, we weren't afraid, Jake, right? We were just frustrated because we knew we had to implement systems. I want Jake's take on this because he really pushed for the coaching. I love coaching, but Jake really pushed for the coaching. And for me, it was like, okay, I'm not really afraid, but don't know how we're going to get to that next level.
I think, the funny thing is about us is we might be a little bit of a unicorn here, because I don't know that it was necessarily frustration or fear, but we have this burning desire for constant improvement. And we know that we always need to work on ourselves and get better. And we do believe in coaching. We obviously have our own coaching program. So I think for us, it's that we don't know what we don't know. And we knew there was things that were lacking from a scale system standpoint in our business, and specifically the execution piece. So I think for ourselves, it was almost, hey, we just want to get better. And can you help us do that? So it may have been a little different in that instance, because I never had that necessarily feeling like of dread or anything around our business. But it was just, hey, we're lacking, but we couldn't necessarily pinpoint it. And really, as we went through some of the process, it was on the execution piece, because part of what I do, Andy was talking about that brute force. I'll load our folks. Let's do this. Let's do that. It's just throwing a million things at them, but then we get bottlenecked and we're not necessarily pulling it through. So we're getting kind of, you're talking about in your intro, getting log jammed there or thwarted.
Right.
So it was that execution piece where I knew we needed to get better at it, and it was finding ways to sort of digest all of the things that I necessarily was throwing at our folks to be able to execute them better. So maybe a little bit different, but definitely a need there.
Yeah. If you think about, I'm a obstacle course racer, do marathons, that kind of stuff. You start out, when I started out anyway, it was like run a mile, run 2 miles, run 3 miles, run 5 miles, and you just kind of build on it. But there's a point at which you get capped out, right? So you don't know how to improve. And if you truly want to improve, to your point, you have a burning desire to always get better. You have to look outside yourself. And for me, that's the essence of, I'm fearful that if I don't go ask for help somewhere else, I'm not going to be able to reach the next level, whatever the next level might be.
I love that. So I was going to ask this question. What were some of the biggest mistakes companies do that come to see, come for your advice? And I think the first one you just mentioned that is they want to get better. They're afraid. They don't know how to get better. They're tapped out. What are the big mistakes you see companies do that should come and get your coaching?
I think, and I say this all the time, I do these keynotes and workshops and stuff all over the place. And I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs around the world. And I always have this slide, and the slide says, set a goal, make a plan, do the work. Set a goal, make a plan, do the work.
Emmett Smith.
And then I'll say, look, it's so simplistic, right? It's like the whole world knows that's how we do shit, right? So set a goal, make a plan, do the work. That's the number one thing that people are not doing. So some people will set a goal. You're asking me what mistakes that they make. They don't set a specific enough goal, if they set any at all. They certainly never slow down long enough to write a plan for it. Step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4 with a time frame. And very few of them actually do the work. That's why gym memberships never get used. It's the exact same thing. So the biggest mistake that people make, either they call us and they don't want to use us because they don't really want to go do those things, or they even hire us. This happens too. They hire us, we go in, we're in there 1 to maybe 3 quarters, and we'll make sure the first one's done. We'll make sure the second one's done because we'll require it, but we can't do the work for you. And when the work doesn't happen, we don't get the results. And if the results don't show up, then there's no need for us to be there. So they have to go do the work. We coach, you run the race. So that's the biggest thing that people fall down on.
So you mean there's actually work involved in this, huh? Everyone thinks it's a 4-hour work week, and it's just like, okay. You know, the problem is, I think, Andy, everyone's running around like a chicken without a head because they're entrepreneurs and they're working in the business instead of on the business. And that's so hard for somebody who's been doing it for so many years. Because I had the restaurant for 20-something years, and I felt just like you did, burned out. I freaking hated it. And if I'd met you, I'd probably have like 15 restaurants right now. I'd have like 3 cookbooks and all that because I was always busy doing the menial work. And I
dreaded going in, right, Gino? Like I got the feeling from that you dreaded going in at a certain point.
You know why? Because I was just surrounded, and it's, what Andy meant was completely right. I was the one who had to change, not the business. It wasn't the business of the people, because I was hiring the people. I was attracting what I was, not what I wanted, bro. And that's really hard to accept when you're this adult who has all these opportunities, and you're like, what the hell am I doing? I'm doing something wrong. But when you don't know who to reach out to, or you don't know how to grow a company, because you've never grown a company before, right? It's not something you do every day. It's not something you wake up. They don't teach you in college. Forget high school, college. They don't teach you anything in college that's relevant to building a business, right? They teach you about 401ks. My son is learning about what compound interest is and what 401ks. And he said to me, why would I put money in a 401k and be rich when I'm 65? I want to be rich now. I was like, dude, that was like music to my ears, Jake. This morning, we were walking the beach with him yesterday. So, I mean, it's just like, I don't know, there's not many people, you know what I mean? Like, I thought that's a mind shift right there. So that's a win for me. That's a huge win. It's nothing wrong with 401ks, nothing wrong with college. But if you want to be that and not be an entrepreneur, you can go down that route. But if you want to be an entrepreneur, don't think you're going to find success there. So I don't know why I went off on that tangent. I'm sorry about that. But that struck a nerve with me, because anyone out there who's struggling with the business, look internally. Don't look at the business itself. Look at what you're doing. And then I think you need to reach out to somebody like Petra who can coach you up. If you want to stay in that business or you want to grow, you need to surround yourself with people who are like-minded and who are better than you, and you'll learn from them. You think that's accurate, Andy?
Yeah. And it never stops is the other side of that, right? So, the minute you think you got it figured out, you better keep going, because, the whole world is coming to cannibalize what you've created if you don't continue to grow. So growth for growth's sake is, I don't think growth for growth's sake is a good thing, but I do think growth for health's sake is a good thing. You need to continue to grow to build a healthy company, because it just won't survive otherwise, especially now.
That's right, because everyone's out there. It's R&D. I've heard it so many times, rip off and duplicate. That's what people are doing right now. So you better have something completely unique. Can we go through your coaching, some of the KPIs you use, some of, like you said, the daily huddles and all, some of the things that businesses should incorporate to start really scaling up their jobs, their companies?
Yes. And you talked a little bit about it. So figuring out, and core values are one of those, it's almost cliche in business today to say core values. And I think those words get a little bit tromped on. They become too corporate-y or soft. I always tell people that they should use what I call them six-pack words. If you had a six-pack and I had a six-pack, we're going to talk very differently. We're going to have real words that we use as opposed to some kind of BS that we use as thesaurus to come up with a bunch of cool stuff, or the wordsmith something. I just hate those terms. But you need to figure out what your core values are. They're not aspirational, what you want to be. It's what you actually believe of yourself as the owner, CEO, leader of that company. And then make sure that people are living up to those. If you believe that, for us, our number one core value is no, try, only do. Like, we don't use the language try around here. People don't, attempt things. They jump in and they just go at them 100%. They have an attitude of no try. We have one that says that's see around the curves. So we want to anticipate the needs and pre-fill them. So I need people to look out to 30,000 feet and go, oh, so if I make this change in this one thing, how does it affect everything else? And I need people to think that way. And we use those core values on a regular basis. So that's kind of the starting point. There are other foundational items in a business. And then, as I said about when I started Petra, you need to look out and have a vision for where you want to go. So I looked out 10 years, most people can't get that far out. But if you can get out 3 years and say, I'm at $1 million now, and in 3 years, I want to be at 5, or I'm at $50 million now, and in 3 years, I want to be at 100, whatever that looks like for you from a revenue standpoint, and then break down the other targets. So it might be revenue and retention and number of locations. And, there's a myriad of targets, and we have some documents on our website where people can pull down sample targets, but create those, vision those into the future and get them really solid in your brain. I read something that Dan Sullivan wrote the other day that said the eyes cannot see and the ears cannot hear what the brain doesn't know. So you have to put it into your brain in a very clear vision, and then the universe will kind of open up, the law of attraction begins to happen, and you begin to see and hear things that you didn't see and hear before. And you do that through this exercise of looking out into the future. Once you have your target set, you come over to the next kind of column and you say, what are the big capabilities I have to build in order to get there? And it's just, what are the big capabilities I have to build in order to get there? What do I got to be really, really good at to go from 50 to 100? I got to have a repeatable sales process that generates 3 times the results of what I have today, whatever those capabilities look like. Mm-hmm. But once you get them into your brain, now you're able to break them down. So if I say I have to have a repeatable sales process that produces 3 times the results, when I get from 3 years to 1 year, what do I need to do year 1 in order to have that in 3 years? And if I know what I need to do in year 1, then I can say what I need to do in the first quarter of that year. So I have that at the end of the year. So I have that in 3 years. Again, set a goal, make a plan, do the work. This is not rocket science. It's just a matter of looking out into the future, designing it, and breaking it down into smaller incremental things all the way down to every single day, which is where it becomes, that's why we kind of slow walk that when we implement. So we'll begin to do little meeting rhythms over the course of time. We don't want to throw everything on you at one time. Is that helpful, like paint a picture?
No, it's totally helpful, because the number one value that I personally have got from Petra coaching is clarity. It's trying to see the future and understand it. And when we got very clear on that, it gave me clarity. And then the reverse engineering piece, I feel very comfortable with. But it's developing that clarity of what the future looks like, where you're going, and then developing that strategy as you reverse engineer it. And that, to me, I've had a lot of aha moments from working with the group. So it makes 100%.
So I think what Jake is saying is he's drinking the Kool-Aid like I am, because I think what coaches do basically is we all know the answers in ourselves, right? We're just afraid, and we don't know how to pull the answers out. Jake and I were using a coach to do a slide deck for ourselves. We knew what we wanted, but the coach was able to ask those amazing questions and pull out the answers from us, and then help us create what we wanted. So that's why there's so much value in this process. That somebody who's done this hundreds and hundreds of times with other entrepreneurs, and it's basically the same with any business. And you're asking the same questions, and we know those answers, but we don't even know the questions to ask. So the value with
you got to get them pulled out of you sometimes too.
Yeah. The value with what you provide is just amazing, that you're able to do that, to be able to paint the picture for the entrepreneur. And what it is also you're raising our level of energy, where we're really engaged, we're really pumped. We want to get together. We have a day meeting, and to get Jake in a room for the whole day is like, that's a miracle in and of itself. Sitting in a chair and watching slides is like, wow, I can't believe he did that. You can see him fading by the end of the day. You can see him a little restless there, but he stuck it out. So it's amazing. Andy, how do you hire talent? I mean, you go through because Jake always used to poo-poo culture and core values, and he's saying that to his corporate. Now he lives by it, right? I mean, one of our core values is we don't want to hear it's not your job, because I'm packing books and shipping books out. So that's one of our core values. So how do you hire and retain talent for people like me who I have the restaurant? I always say there's nobody out there. I can't hire somebody right now. There's no quality out there. What do you do?
Well, we have a line of people calling us to come to work here. And we've actually, a lot of companies do this. So the answer is be different, be unique, and be like shiny. You need to be, if you're like everybody else, you might as well just fade off, because you're going to get run over. You need to be so different that you just can't be ignored anymore. And then utilizing those core values. So from an interview process, we use, and you guys will go through this process too. We use top grading, which is a long interview process. Phone call, face-to-face, shadowing, voting on can do, will do, team fit after shadowing. They come back in for a 2.5-hour face-to-face. They have to come visit sessions. Sometimes we pay them to do that. Sometimes we don't. There's a lot of stuff that goes into the interview process, and really good people enjoy that. They enjoy the fact that, hey, you're just not letting anybody in here. They're being really difficult. I want to be a part of something that's really difficult to go do. And that's the kind of people we want, the ones that want to go out there and do it. To your core value of, I never want to hear, that's not my job. If I had you in a seat, I would say, hey, here we have a core value, something that we really value in people is, it's kind of stated this way. We never want to hear, that's not my job, or it's not my job. And this is the phrase, and you can do this with every single core value. Tell me about a time in your life where something wasn't your job, but you did it anyway. Tell me about a time in your life when something wasn't your job, but you did it anyway, and it got you in trouble. Tell me about a time in your life that something wasn't your job, but you did it anyway, and you got rewarded for it. So, tell me about a time in your life. And all you want that person to do is to tell you about instances, when I was in grade school, when I was in middle school, when I was in high school, when I graduated college, whatever it might look like. You just want them to tell stories. Now, if they're sitting there going, I don't really have anything to tell you, they may not be a fit for your organization. And literally go through every single core value in that manner, so that you can see, oh, this guy's, they got 10 stories around this one. They got 10 stories around this one. They got 10 stories. It might be a good team fit for you.
Authenticity and track record. It's one of the keys to it, right?
Yeah. And it's always deeper. So one of them, and this from being around sales, right? It's not ask and answer. It's ask and answer and ask and ask and ask and ask and ask. Same thing's true with this. It's tell me about a time in your life that, it wasn't your job, but you did it anyway. Tell me about a time that that got you in trouble. Tell me about a time that was rewarded. How'd that make you feel? You just have to continue to go down and ask more questions and more questions and more questions to really get to the depths of that individual.
So this seems like when you're building a business and when you're doing all this, there's a lot of work on the front end, and people might be afraid of that. But it seems as if you do a lot of the work on the front end, the back end will take care of itself, because you hire somebody on this top grading and the system that you've implemented, you're probably going to get a qualified candidate, and you're probably going to have less retention, more retention, and less turnover, correct?
Yeah. And if you're, I don't know if you guys have read Who or Top Grading or, any of the Smart Families books, but the stats, like we have like a 15% chance of hiring what's known as an A player. That's the top 10% quartile, an A player, 10% chance in normal hiring processes. And it goes to 80% if you use this process.
Wow.
Most people will never use this process because it takes 4 times longer. And the secret to using, we did this at NationLink. NationLink was the wireless business. We do it at Petra now, is you have to build a bench, which is completely not it's like the opposite of what people think. If you have a major league team and you have a minor league team, you go play in the minors until you're needed in the majors, right? You don't make much money. You sit on the bench a lot. You practice your ass off. You don't even know what's going on really. And then they call you up to actually play ball. This is the exact same thing. We constantly hire, meaning we're always putting people on the bench. Even if I don't need anybody right now, our team is interviewing, top grading, shadowing, putting people in planning days to witness what's going on. They're vetting through people all year long, whether we need somebody or not, because we perpetually want 5 people on that bench, 5 qualified people that have already gone through the interview process, that have already said, I'd love to work here, and that we've said, we'd love for you to work here. But right now, I don't have anything for you. So hang tight. Go get another job if you want to. That's totally cool, and you probably should. I just need to be able to stay in touch with you, and then we just kind of drip on them, letting them know what's going on throughout time. Here's what's going on at Petra. Here's our newest thing. So at that point, when it's time for us to find somebody to come on board, I got 5 people. One of them is going to jump on that opportunity, and I can have them here in 24 hours.
Dude, that's like customer experience. That is awesome. That's like to have Jake, like customer experience. You're doing with employee experience, where you're giving them a unique experience where you really care about them, and you're not telling them, I can't use you. I just can't use you right now, but I want you in the fold. And it's almost like a tenant or resident where you have, you're putting them on a waiting list, and I'd love for you to come to live here, but there's no room here. But let me keep in touch with you if something comes available. So I love that strategy, dude. That is awesome. That's
pretty cool.
Yeah, that is
well,
really
everybody. Cool. Everybody is hiring when they need it. Somebody quits, they move, whatever that looks like, and they leave, and everybody panics. Oh shit, we got to have somebody. So they downgrade the process because they need a butt in the seat right away. And they end up getting somebody that's not as good as the person that left, as opposed to somebody who's better than the person that left. And they're unhappy with it. Well, stop doing that. If it's not working, do something different. It's harder. It's definitely harder. But the result is not harder.
I love that. Last long answer question before Jake gets to give you some short answers. What would you recommend to people, the best business building tip for the listeners out there?
That's a good question. I don't think the answer is what you're after, but I think it's the truth. The best building business tip I could tell an entrepreneur, business owner, or a leader is read 50 books a year. Now, that's probably not, go to this industry, look at this thing, hiring, like the nuts and bolts, but that reading gets information into that individual and allows them to make better decisions and be more creative and all of these different myriad of things. And 50 seems to be a magic number. If they can't get 50, do 20. If you can't get 20, do 10. And set the example for the team members to do the same. If you can get an organization actually reading, not similar books, but just books in general, then that speeds everything up inside of an organization. So probably not the answer you're looking for, but I think it's the number one thing.
Dude, it helped me a lot. I mean, I used to read a lot of books because I'm not a smart guy myself, and just reading from different industries and different thought leaders and getting golden nuggets from a little golden nugget from every book. You have 50 books. You can get 1 or 2 ideas from 50 books. That's 100 ideas that you didn't have. I I totally agree with that point. I love that.
I also believe too that like that information is in your brain now, right? It's in there somewhere, and there'll be this instance, it may be 5 years from now, where you're sitting in a meeting or you're dealing with a client or, you know, an employee's doing, like, something's going down and your brain will access the answer to a question just because you read that book.
All right, gang, let's take a quick time out to hear from our sponsor. Gino, I know a lot of our listeners are wanting to take their multifamily investing business to the next level. I know that you've been hard at work helping Jake and Gino students do just that using our framework. Can you explain to the listeners how they can get our help?
Guys, we've been hard at work growing our community of like-minded investors, and the results of our members has been nothing short of incredible. We're looking to grow this amazing group. What we're looking for is those who want to follow our proprietary framework that we've created: buy right, manage right, and finance right. Leverage our connections, education, and mentorship as ways to take your business to the next level.
So if you're interested in finding out more about how you can become a part of our amazing community, apply to work with us at jakeandgino.com/apply. All right, and we are back. Andy, what is your best habit for success? Something you do on a daily or weekly basis that's helped you out?
Paddleboard?
Yeah, that's not. So we don't know each other all that well, but I've got a string of things that I do every day. So I get up 2 hours before I have to be anywhere every single day. I have a gratitude journal that I write in every single day. I have breakfast. I stretch. I do a series of sit-ups and push-ups. I do handstands. I have cold exposure. I have a breathing piece. I connect with my wife and kids sometimes if by text if they're not awake yet. I have 30 minutes of exercise, which is usually a 3 to 5 mile run, and then 100 ounces of water every single day. Meditation, I meditate every day, and then I read for at least 10 minutes every single morning. So all of that happens before my day starts. So the habits that I have.
Mindfulness.
Say again?
As I said, TM or mindfulness?
Mindfulness.
Okay. Sorry, you're about to say something else.
That's okay. So I have a lot of habits that I've created over time that have helped me be better personally, that I think bleed over into the business itself. So all of that to say, I think the number one habit that I've created, and I track all this throughout the year, and I actually do a talk about how to do this as an individual, is appreciation of other people through handwritten notes. And you probably have seen a little bit of that through your planning process. But I'll write somewhere between 500 and 700 notes of appreciation to other human beings throughout the entire year. So it's, 2 a day, essentially. That is the biggest personal habit that has had the greatest impact on me and my people that are around me in my life. And I've been doing it for decades.
All right. So this may dovetail into the next question. Give us a tip for creating a great culture, maybe besides the handwritten notes.
It depends on what you want as a culture. First, you need to define what you want. So as a leader, I'm after excellence, not perfection, but excellence. So the greatest tip I can give you is it's not for them, it's for you. And it starts with you as the leader. You can't ask someone else to do something you're not willing to or are doing yourself. So if I say to my team, these are the things we're going to do and it's going to be excellent and it's work, then shit, I have to do the exact same thing, or else I'm just a hypocrite in that regard. So the tip is you have to always be elevating your game if you want your team to elevate their game. They'll only rise to your level. Your team's not gonna go past you. So if you want them to rise, you have to rise too.
All right. So you have a solopreneur out there, or you have somebody who is the owner of a business, but essentially they've created another job for themselves and they're really struggling. What is the first step in starting to scale, or a tip, or what's that first action they should take to take their business to the next level and actually create a business where they're not the end all be all?
And there's nothing wrong with that. It's a realization to start with. So they just need to, and I got lots of friends who, make, $1 million, $2 million a year as an individual practitioner of something really cool, right? And they're completely satisfied with that, and that's all they ever want to do. And that's don't stop doing that if it's something you're completely satisfied with. So that's the first thing, is you have to decide. Just because somebody says it's a job, not a business, accept that it's a job and it's a damn good one. I'm going to keep it forever. So decide first. The second thing would be lay out a plan. Just like I said earlier, what are my values? What do I want this thing to look like in 3 years? What do I got to do in 1 year? What do I got to do in a quarter? What do I need to do this month? What do I need to do this week? What do I need to do today?
Lay it down. Emmett Smith, baby. NFL Films. I watched it the other day. That's why I'm joking about it. But they had, it was NFL Films, and it's like the story of so-and-so or whatever. And it was Emmett Smith. And everything he wrote down, I'm going to be the leading rusher. I'm going to be the MVP. I'm going to win the Super Bowl. And he kept posting it in his locker, and everything that he was putting up there, he just kept knocking it out. So I just a lot of respect for that. You mentioned books a few times. Do you have a book recommendation for us that really impacted you or changed your life that you'd like to get out there to the audience?
There's tons, man. Scaling Up, Vern Harnish's book, was that methodology. Our coaching practice is built on that methodology today. It was the one, the thing as an entrepreneur, when I read that, and I had, a bunch of team members spread across a bunch of geographic stuff, and I had a damn mess. When I read it, I was like, this is a better way to operate a company. Why hasn't somebody shown me this before? So I think that's a really, really important read for people. There's also a book called The Surrender Experiment. Michael Singer wrote it. Michael Singer is a billionaire software guy, but he's also practiced meditation and surrendering to what comes at him. And he wrote a book about his life. And I thought it was very unique because it's the polar opposite of what I've been telling you. So it gives a little bit of context between this incredibly high level of structure, which is what I have. They call me intense, but this kind of left side versus right side. So I think the combination of Scaling Up, which is an operating system, and Michael Singer's book, The Surrender Experiment, gives you a picture of, like, a whole picture of what an entrepreneur looks like.
What project are you excited about right now?
Man, we got a bunch of stuff going on.
No,
we're
not
launching.
You guys.
I've been doing this talk called No Try Life for about 3 years to entrepreneur groups, and do it 20 times a year, and get a few keynotes and things like that. And I made this shift in the organization about 4 years ago, from just working on the business to more working on the people inside of the business. And we started building out personal plans for folks, et cetera, and the importance of health and nutrition and mindfulness and the 360 degree of the entrepreneur. So this No Try Life concept has kind of grown out of that. So I'm starting to do events where I'm bringing in entrepreneurs. We got one in November and one in January, where I'm having them over at my house for dinner, and then we're going to work for an entire day laying out the next year's personal plan for them. So not indifferent than what we do for business, 10 years, 5 years, 3 years, 1 year, et cetera. But what does that look like for your life, with your relationships, with your rituals, with your achievements, and with your wealth? So I'm excited about that.
Jake, I'm going to be honest with you. I love that kind of party. My wife would shoot me if I went to that kind of party with her, but I would go there every day of the week. I'd rather do that and watch football or watch the Open right now. That's for sure. So that sounds like a lot of fun, dude.
One thing I took away from that, sounds like a lot of 5 F's going on there, right?
That's
awesome. Right. That's right.
Yeah. I got to say, I missed the BlackBerry Messenger. That was one of my takeaways from this. I started thinking about that again. The iPhone Messenger is okay, but it doesn't hold up to the BlackBerry Messenger. That was something unique. What is the best way for folks to get a hold of you or to take the next step with Petra?
Website, Petra Coach, PetraCoach.com. Everything that you might need is on there to contact us. We've got all of our coaches and our accountability coaches listed on there. And there's tons of materials under this little resources tab. A lot of the things I talked about on here, and tools that you can download and just put into action on your own. point is, do something. Don't just wait to be coached. Even if you're not coached, like grab something and lay down a plan. Set a goal, make a plan, do the work. Just go do those components and you'll be more successful.
Gino, I'm going to have some brutal honesty right now. Monday is typically my day for working on my quarterly target, which is the top grading. And I missed that yesterday. So, I gotta get to work, man.
Yeah, but you did a lot of work yesterday anyway. So we were on the phone yesterday. We had calls yesterday. So it's like, that's what you love to do, right? Because there's no such thing as Monday through Friday for us anymore, right? So that's what happens when you're an entrepreneur. If you love what you're doing, there's no more thing is that constraint of a week and a weekend. It all blends itself into one, right?
Yeah, for sure.
What were your takeaways, Jake?
No, I love it. I think that, going through it is that you really just have to outline what the future is going to look like and get very clear. And then, like I said before, that clarity benefits me so much. And that's sort of the reason we got on board, because there's things that we don't know and we have to bring other people in to give us that structure and that clarity at times. And that's probably been the biggest benefit, for this, and we use various coaches for things like Gino was talking about, on our keynote speeches and things. So we really believe in it. And what it does, it accelerates you and it helps you from preventing the same mistakes that other people or you will make. And it speeds up the process and it makes you a lot sharper. So, appreciate everything. So, Gino, what you got?
A few things actually. I could probably spend a half an hour recapping because there's so much information. Because if you're really listening and paying attention to what Andy said, there's so much in there. The first thing is decide for yourself. If you have a great job and you love what you're doing, don't go with what someone else is deciding for you. Make sure you love what you're doing. If you do it, keep it. If not, you want to change, go out there because there's people that can help you change, right? I think culture and core values are really important. And if you're in the corporate world like Jake was, people poo-poo them like he likes to say, but that's truly based upon what you are and what you believe and what you want to strive for. So it's important that you start working on your culture and your core values. I love the operating system that they have at Petra, so you need to go and check it out. And that daily huddle has been awesome for us. The priorities are great. The targets are great. All those KPIs are really important for us. One thing we didn't touch on, Jake, but I think people should look at is that 4-step, that people, strategy, execution, and cash. We just ran out of time. I think people should really take a look and take a deeper dive into that. And I think maybe just ending up by saying, really, kicking a dead horse, or whatever you want to say, set a goal, make a plan, and do the work. I mean, it's really simple to say that, but there's a lot of work involved in this, but hopefully the work is a lot of fun, like what we've experienced. I hate flying, but every time we got to go down for a quarterly meeting, I get on the plane, I go to Knoxville, I spend the day with everybody, and it's a lot of fun. It's invigorating. It's challenging. It's scary. There's a lot to work because you work on yourself, but still there's so much growth involved in it. When you're done, when you get out of your comfort zone, you feel like you've accomplished a lot, and then the next quarter is there. So just start working on yourself.
Well, and for us, it was the execution piece that we really needed to work on, and a little bit of the people piece for the hiring, and we're implementing it now, so it's been great. All right, well, Andy, thank you very much. Really appreciate you coming on. And for the folks out there, if you enjoyed the episode, you found value on it, get over to iTunes, give us a good review, 5-star and a like, and that'll be it. So, Andy, thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys. Talk to you later.